Christopher and to Tim. For those of you looking at your watches thinking, I hope I get to go home, you will. We'll be aiming for 4:45 finish, so that those of you heading on buses will have plenty of time to do that. But I hope as well many of you will stick around, because I hope you may want to come and talk. You might want to come and talk to Tim. You might want to come and talk to Christopher. And I hope you'll re-engage with the people upstairs with their booths as well. Let me just try and help us understand why here, why now, why Kingsley. This isn't just us. The library upstairs is full of people who are passionate about the things that you've been hearing about this afternoon. They really believe in those things. They want the environment to be better than it is. I know that many of you, the pupils at Kingsley, are as passionate about these topics as these gentlemen are. I know that because a number of you attended a climate strike a few weeks ago. That caused a bit of a Facebook storm. Many of your parents were very angry with me as headmaster. How dare the headmaster allow students to strike from school and go and attend a climate change march? How dare he? Other parents posted comments and sent me messages saying, "We're delighted, headmaster, that you have allowed some of your students to take part in these climate change strikes." Hey, I've only been a headmaster for 3 years, but I get it. I can never make everybody happy. That's just life. This last week, and I'm not going to embarrass them by naming them, but 2 pupils from the school came back to me just on their own, just very quietly, to say, "Sir, there is a climate change walk coming up this Friday coming in Barnstable. Please may we go?" And my response to them, as it will be to anybody else who comes to ask me, is, if your parents give you permission, then you may attend. Because I believe that that is an important part of what you are doing as your education. Now, even parents who would never give permission for their children to go on those marches, some of those parents will probably still be angry with me, because they will say, "Well, that's not what you should be doing, headmaster. You should not be allowing students to go and attend those climate marches." Well, that's the decision I've made. I will be allowing them to attend, if they have their parents' permission, because it's important for you to teach us. Many of you know a hell of a lot more about this whole topic even than I do. I have a geography degree. This, to me, is very, very natural. This is exciting stuff. I'm perhaps not quite as excited about soil biochemistry as Christopher, but I do remember doing a soil chemistry module as part of my geography degree when I was at Cambridge. I've still got a book somewhere called Soil Chemistry. I ought to show you it. You've probably read it. But this is important. This is about you thinking about what planet you are going to pass on to your children. Many young people, quite rightly I think, are very angry with people of our generation because of the state we've left things in. So here is an opportunity, right here, right now in your school, to do something about it. What would you like to do? My vision for Kingsley is very simple. I want us to be a global leader in this whole sphere of environmental education. A global leader. Not just North Devon, not just the southwest of England, a global leader, working in partnership with other local groups, many of whom are upstairs. It's like a stick of rock. There's a lot of rock in this part of the world, isn't there? Especially in the summer. Westward Ho. What would Westward Ho be without sticks of rock? But when you get a stick of rock, and you look at the end of it, there's a word in there, isn't there? And it might say Westward Ho, it might say Bideford. But when you break that stick of rock, that word runs all the way through the stick of rock. It's just there. It's part of the rock. It goes all the way through. That's what this project is about. It's not about us as a school saying, oh, aren't we clever? Look at us. We've come up with a whizzo idea and we're going to call it the Earth Centre. And everyone's going to go, oh, well done, Kingsley, aren't you great? That's not what this is about. This is about us saying these principles, these things are important to us. And they're so important, it's like a stick of rock. It's just how we do stuff. It's there in everything that we do. One of the things I love doing, I haven't done it so much in the darker winter months, I love, when I'm doing my school walks, bumping into the preschool and the nursery. Have you ever done that? Some of you have seen them out and about? The tiniest ones that we have in our school, all dressed up in their wellies and their little onesies, their little waterproof onesies. They look so sweet. And they're out. They're out on the playing field. They're out in the woods. And what are they doing? They're looking for bugs. They're looking for worms. They're looking for hedgehogs. They're looking at different plants. That's wonderful to see. And many of you who've come up through our prep school, think about all those wonderful experiences you've had down in the woods on the other side of the road with Mr. Wilson, learning about our natural environment, learning about being outdoors, learning about engaging with your environment. I was with Mr. Wilson in one of the lessons last, I think it was in the summer term, with a year 3 group. Absolutely brilliant lesson. Collecting little twigs and leaves and branches off the floor that would burn well. And watching year 3 learn how to light a fire. You know, with a metal Brillo pad and a battery. How awesome is that? It's very Bear Grylls, isn't it? And then you come to year 7. And I kind of feel we've lost the impetus a little bit, which is a real shame. Because I think the passion is still there and I think the enthusiasm is still there. And that's what this is about. It's about driving some of those ideas through the school. Christopher's spoken briefly there about how we might hook that in to some of our academic studies. And yeah, I get it. You guys want GCSEs, you want A-levels, you want BTECs, you need them at the moment to go on to university. Your parents have that expectation of us as a school. We will continue to do that. But what we're doing is we're saying, let's have these themes running through your learning so that we are engaging you with that. So it will run right through the school, just like a stick of rock. It will also run across all departments. I was asked the other day, some of you might have heard, I had the privilege of speaking on The Voice FM radio station. And I was asked about how this concept might link in with a subject. And the chap who was interviewing me mentioned geography. Too easy. Too easy. It's my subject. It's so easy to do that. What if you're studying English literature A-level? How does that link to what we're talking about today? How does that work? Well, I know it does, because I've been chatting with Miss Makepeace, who's our head of English, and she's got a wonderful idea that's come from her and Miss Percy. They've been talking about what Simon Armitage is up to at the moment. Who is Simon Armitage? Does anybody know who that person is? Come on, English students. Nat? He's a poet. I think he's a slightly famous poet. What's his title at the moment? Miss Makepeace, help us out. He's the poet laureate. He is, if you like, the best poet. He's king of the crop at the moment. Go and have a look at what Miss Makepeace has stuck outside her classroom door. Go and read his poem. And look next to it where there is a prize. With a first prize of potential, I think it was about £3,000, wasn't it, Miss Makepeace? £5,000, even better. For a piece of work on the subject of trees. Wow. So, go on then. Do it. Enter that competition. Think about how your work engages with this stick of rock and the ideas running through it. It doesn't matter what subject you're studying. You can be engaged and passionate. In a minute, we're going to be looking at some wonderful images of what the Earth Centre building might actually look like. That's going to be really exciting. I'm really excited to be sharing that with you this afternoon. I have a dream as well that outside that space, I'd love to see art. I'd love to see sculpture. I'd love to see pieces of work that you have created that tie in with these themes. It doesn't matter what you're studying. Let me talk about the practical aspects. We're launching today this concept of the Earth Centre. There are really two parts to it. The first is what Christopher's just been sharing with you. We're going to call it the Ecology Zone. It's the no-dig farming concept that Christopher's just been explaining. A small number of students were up there earlier today at lunchtime. We've got pictures of Tobias, the first man laying into the ground with a spade. No dig with a spade. What's going on? Well, all that's going on is that first initial movement of soil out of the land, turn it upside down on top of a piece of cardboard rich in cellulose that will then break down and will form part of the nutrient-rich environment within which the crops will be grown. We've started. There is a small test plot. It's marked out with yellow tape and it's on the little bank above the AstroTurf. Go and have a look. Go and have a look. That's the initial stage. That then will grow. It will grow onto the lower Belvoir field, where we hope to develop this concept of no-dig farming. We're going to learn a lot along the way. We might find that some of the things we started doing, that we think this is a good idea, let's do this, we may find they don't work. So we'll change it. We will learn together as we are embarking on that process. But I want you all to be part of that journey. The second is the Earth Centre itself. Mr. Whaley, our head of geography, is also going to be the head of the Earth Centre. Mr. Whaley did a brilliant assembly on Monday. I think we all agree, did a fantastic job. Really, really good assembly. Getting us all just to think about what we are doing and what we might do. Some of you are aware of this already, others of you may not be. Over the last few weeks, Mr. Whaley has been on a journey. He's been engaging with some educational resources that have been made available by the United Nations. And he has become a United Nations accredited climate change teacher. That's really, really exciting. He's taken himself off, he's done many, many hours of private study to work through a series of modules that allow him, with the scientific understanding, with the confidence that comes from having learnt that material, to actually deliver lessons about climate change and about climate action and about how we might change the way in which we live. I'm hugely excited about that. And I've got his certificate here, and in a second he's going to come and collect it. But even more exciting, this only happened this morning, a second teacher, who I didn't even know was doing this, has taken himself off and has done exactly the same course that Mr. Whaley has done, and has today received his certificate. It came through this morning. I've framed it super quick, ready to pass that on. And that's Mr. D'Agostino. Mr. D'Agostino teaches maths. Crazy. What's he doing? Well, let's find out. Mr. Whaley and Mr. D'Agostino, could you both come up, please? Congratulations. Don't disappear. Neither of you is mic'd up, but I know you've both got big voices. Just very quickly, Steve, tell us why this is important for you.
Well, to be honest, I think it goes back to something that Sir Tim said. Take on something that you're maybe not familiar with, or maybe something that you think you know everything about already. I know I don't look as though I've been teaching that long, but I am in my 19th year as a teacher.
Not possible.
Not possible. And I've been an environmentalist for longer than that, and I wouldn't say I thought I knew everything, but you know the curve. Miss Hamilton did an assembly in the maths masterclass recently about how much you think you know. And when you start to learn, you realise how much you actually know, and then you have to slowly build your way up. And I know that I'm only on the curve on the way up. There's still lots to learn, but it was a great, through the Harwood education, it was a brilliant opportunity. And obviously it's been great because it got me the Earth Centre Manager job, I'd say.
Mario, as a maths teacher, why have you done this? Why have you gone down this route?
Because the interest of Mr. Whaley was one of them, but it's the not knowing something. How to know it, learn it. Ask the people. Mr. Whaley was very helpful, how to get on the course. And it was something I look back and now think, yeah, I'm actually really glad I did it.
Brilliant. Well, both, thank you very, very much indeed. Well done, both of you. I know there's one more teacher who's also embarked on this journey already. I'm not going to embarrass her or name her because I don't think she's managed to get quite as far as they have just yet. But that's fine. Wow, wouldn't it be awesome to have a range of teachers from our school, across all departments, across all subjects? And actually, why just teachers? Why just teachers? Why not some of our support staff as well? Why not encourage us all to do this? I know he hates to be mentioned by name, so I'm not going to name him, because he gets very embarrassed by it, but one of our sixth form pupils has already done and completed one of those modules. And I know there are other students in the school who've also embarked on that route, having chatted to Mr. Whaley. Brilliant, awesome, do them all. I would love to get you up here and give you your certificate to say, as an ambassador for climate change, that would be awesome.
Would your children agree to be a VT at COP25 next week in Madrid? Would they agree to speak to the entire world about being the very first educate global UN youth ambassadors for climate change learning?
I'm sure we would love to do that, and we can certainly sort that out with you.
In the world.
We're happy to be the first in the world, aren't we? Yeah. Excellent. I'm going to ask James Barnett to come and join me on stage. James, please come up. James is a local architect and his business is called JB Architects. James has a reputation, richly deserved, for designing buildings that are environmentally sensitive. And James has been doing some work for us on our new Earth Centre. So I'm hoping in a moment the lights will dim, some images will appear on the screen, as if by magic. And James, first question I would like to ask you is, when you were doing the designs for this project, what were your key inspirations?
Just stepping back from that, I think, following Sir Tim, that I could possibly bore you. You are probably going to hear what you're expecting to hear, and I might use the word sustainability. Really sorry. So I don't know where to go, really, from here. But to answer your question, I think, broadly speaking, I'm just inspired by buildings of any age which are living, could be considered as living buildings. Quite often we see a building as an inanimate object, and actually, I think taking a cue from nature, how nature, plants and animals adapt to their environment, they can deal with cold, heat, if they're successful, and how a building can do the same, and that's the most inspiring thing for me. So, I think a building has to be adaptable, and in our case, it needs to get its energy from the sun, and it needs to capture rain and use that to water plants and flush the loos, deal with the hot days, deal with the cold days.
Excellent. How did the plans evolve from that initial inspiration to your actual designs, which are beginning to appear on the screen behind us?
Well, obviously, the idea of this new teaching and learning idea is tremendously exciting, and so I've felt that the building was it could be seen as a beacon of hope, sort of shining light into the darkness of climatic and ecological challenges that we're facing. So I've represented that with essentially a beacon building. On the other side, I'm very excited by Victorian greenhouses, and they are basically a lean-to glass roof, glass wall against an old garden wall in a garden courtyard. And whenever I visit one, I recommend you do. It's always like a bit like going to the lost world. You go in there and you can't really see what's going on the outside. You go in there and it's incredibly sensory. The smells of plants, the flowers, the earth. And these are lovely, amazing spaces, and how that sort of feeling could be brought into a building. And of course, Sir Tim's already completely preempted that by building the Eden Project. So, so I've got these two ideas which are coming together in the building. One is the beacon, and the other one is the greenhouse, glass houses. And the beacon is a circular building. It houses the lecture theatre with a small lecture theatre, 100 seats, and above it, circular independent study area, which has sort of glass and more of the views and more of the openness, whereas the lecture theatre is much more of the earth. And the glass house is a pretty straightforward rectangular building, and that houses the practical learning areas. Some of it literally is a greenhouse, so it's unheated, plants running through it, and I want that, to feel that sense of adventure when you come in, see these plants and be assaulted by, you'll have your senses assaulted by that. Part of the greenhouse, which can't necessarily see so much in this image, to the north there's a shoulder which houses the administration, the sort of back of house stuff, prep areas, and that is a gently curved form that protects the glass house from the cold north wind, and sort of hugs it from the top there. And that's the sort of thing that I'm hoping will be built of straw wall construction.
That's fantastic. Well, that brings me on to the next bit, which is obviously, given what we're talking about today, how does your design involve and contain eco or environmentally friendly aspects?
Well, sort of seeing it from the top, working our way down, so starting at the roof, you can see it's pretty green already. It's as if we've lifted up the ground and allowed, and then built and brought the building underneath that. So we have, I'm hoping that the shoulder to the north could have a biodiversity roof of sort of plants that are happy in growing in a bit of shade, quite a good deep soil going there, and we'll create a really cool area which I could use then in the hot summer to bring it into the laboratory areas and teaching areas. Obviously green roofs, and then on the other roofs, sedum roofs, which is a bit thinner and a bit lighter, so we don't need so much incredible structure to support those. All these green roofs are capturing CO2. If there's a big storm of rain, they will slow that water down so it's not causing a flood somewhere else downstream. We can capture as much water as we can for the irrigation, flush the loos with it. And then the pitch roof part there is directly facing south, and the perfect angle for, basically it's our energy source. So it's photovoltaic panels are for creating energy from the sun, and that is essentially mostly where the daylight and sunlight is coming into the building. And then, so working down from the roof, some of the walls are, for example, on the beacon, there are interesting curved spiral bits of timber which stops sort of early morning hot summer sun from getting too much sunlight into the independent study area. There's lots of little ploys like that. The roof overshadows so you don't let hot summer sun in. And it's a sort of it's quite a traditional approach, but it's what we call passive solar design. Basically, what we want is try and use what we have, is to get the sun, if it's sunny on the winter's days, bring that sun into the building. The sun's quite low, there are less or no leaves on the trees in front. And if we can bring that sun in certain places, we could heat up an area and use that heat area as a buffer of air, a sort of natural air conditioner. And then with a control system, take some of that air to heat parts of the building, thereby being much less reliant on our own heating and fossil fuels, etc. So the passive design is very traditional. And on a hot summer's day, we want to then not overheat the building. So we let the heat rise and might then create a bit of an airflow, which then will draw cool air from the north side, which we're making a big cool area for collecting cool air there for ventilation. And then, so with that traditional idea, which has been in buildings for centuries, we then add technology and have a building management system where basically software is understanding the outside temperature, the inside temperature, air quality, the amount of light there is, and adapting, changing, opening vents here and there. So the building is becoming living. You're like, why is that opened? What's, light rising gently as the sun is setting, and things are opening here and there, and just with the main object of not having to use too much heating or too much energy in the process. So with that, that's a sort of general design thing. The actual building itself is going to be made out of, well, in terms of glass house, cross-laminated timber, which is using small bits of timber, really gluing them together to make a much bigger structural beam. So we don't have to cut down a tree and turn it to a beam. We can use small pieces. And that's all from wood, from sustainable sources, where they're planting new trees all the time. And we, in this is the cut through of the glasshouse area. That can be extended, adapted. It's crucial. The building can be changed, modified to suit and to be flexible in the future. The last thing we want to do is knock something down to do something else. And then the materials themselves need to be really low carbon. They need to be as local as we could get. For example, so I mentioned straw already. That'd be very exciting to use a sort of miscanthus grass straw and lime render it. It'd be exciting to get to use cob or rammed earth on the beacon building. Obviously, lots of timber cladding, timber in the structure, timber inside. It's a lovely material, and it's just, you know, that's and everything that, you know, can be recyclable is very necessary as well. And then working our way down the building to the ground, we're on the site of the old Kiltrasner boarding house, and it may even be possible to the way the old building house that still has its foundations in the ground is to try and, you know, support our building from some of those foundations, because cement in concrete is very high energy, and we want to reduce the amount of concrete available.
That's fantastic. Just a final question in terms of the link back to learning. How do you think that the building that you've designed here will have an impact on our pupils' learning?
Well, I'm hoping that it's just going to be quite good fun. I'm hoping that the fact that it's so open to the inside and the outside, and we're going to be opening the glass house bit and various other bits on a warmer day, there'll be areas where you can get your hands dirty, but at the same time there are independent spaces which are very sort of relaxed, and you can, you know, go back to your research. I think it's going to be just going to promote, you know, general feeling of well-being, and that also that's going to be quite flexible, the space we designed, so that we'll be able to, you guys will be able to modify what sort of things have been set up there, keep it fresh and exciting. And then at the same time, as I sort of mentioned earlier, perhaps why is that vent opening? It'll be interesting that the building is changing around you, and how the light changes around it. I think it'll be beautiful, and you know, I hope that'll feed into the results and the excitement of learning in this place.
James, thank you so much. Really, thank you for explaining it, and thank you for your wonderful designs. I think, please do. James actually has some of the more detailed drawings upstairs in the library, and I think we have a little fly-through video we can just have a quick look at.
Yeah, we can relax to that, watch a bit of a film.
Let's do that now.
Okay, great.